Welcome back to Shak's Talks. I'm Shakti, and today I want to talk about this book that I'm almost done reading. This is by Jason Quitt. It's called Astral Experiences, and I have just a couple more chapters to go. But this and the work of Hakim Isler is my focus right now. I'm feeling so inspired after Contact in the Desert, and I'm just reinvigorated around human potential. I feel like all the psi phenomena is so fun and interesting. And being a student of the great mysteries and wanting to understand more about the nature of reality, and especially wanting to know what goes on in all these secret programs, and are aliens physical and real, and what mysteries are hiding behind these intelligence agencies and all the rest of it. All of that is so captivating, and it kind of like sparks my interest and gets me researching. But at the end of the day, I don't have a lot of control over the information that I access when it comes to that part of the mysteries. What I do have control over is how I apply the techniques that are available when it comes to psi abilities. And that's what I'm really excited about and want to talk about today. So there's a couple different parts to this. The first one is just being a magical person and being a creative person, and how you can piece together your own version of practicing these tools and techniques. And then the second part is how focusing on the experiences, talking about them with friends, writing them down, and just bringing them to our own awareness is a way to increase those things happening. So it's like increase synchronicities, increase a feeling of magic in your reality, just increase good fortune in some situations, or increase the ability to find exactly what is meant for you, whether it's a book or a teacher or a video, that kind of thing. So in this book, Astral Experiences, Jason Quitt is basically just talking about the stuff he's been through. And this is very similar to like Bob Monroe or Luis Monero or anyone else who talks about their own out-of-body experiences. He's sharing with us intimate personal stories of his own journeys, most of them spontaneous, his experimentation with plant medicine, his experience and understanding of crystals. I bought a pendulum from him, and he talks about dowsing and different methods for accessing energy and answers. And so basically, so far, it's just his own personal journey and what he has experienced in the astral realms. And I'm enjoying it. It's a really nice read. It's very straightforward, very clear energy, clear message, just a report of what he's been through so far. And we'll see how it wraps up in these last few chapters. I'm excited to see where it goes, because towards the end is when he gets into interdimensionals, and that's going to be cool to hear about, because a lot of people do meet what seems to be aliens when they're out of the body. So one of the things that Tom Campbell has said for a long time now is that, he doesn't comment on aliens a lot, but when people do ask him, he says, the larger consciousness system has so many capabilities. Like, this is basically a virtual reality where anything can be rendered, even into physical matter reality. So a UFO, even a crash retrieval, the consciousness system could put something like that there for us. And it's just there to pique our interest and get us going down a certain path. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to lead where we think it's going to lead. And this kind of frustrates me, because I really am kind of a nuts and bolts person when it comes to that side of it. And I want us to have that hard evidence. I want to see that these things are real, because there's so much that makes it seem like they are. Like real physical beings coming from other planets into our planet, or from our planet even. Maybe they're in the oceans, or, there's all these theories of like breakaway civilizations and possible bases on Earth and stuff like that. But it is possible, and I keep a little room in my consciousness for this possibility that these are all just anomalous occurrences that are there to spark us down a more spiritual path, or get us learning, or get us leveling up. And if I had to take a stab at saying what I think is going on right now, and of course, like, I don't know at all, and I'm totally open to this changing, but I would say there is a high probability that whatever all of this phenomena is, the main objective is to help humanity level up to a more expanded consciousness state where we are all accessing our innate abilities. So we're tapping into all our psi capabilities. We have a deeper and more intimate understanding of the nature of reality, and we are asserting our will to interact with that reality. So I think that magic and all psi abilities are there for us to remember that we are participating in this, and that through our intent and through our will, we can actually influence and affect the very fabric of reality. And that really excites me. And there's a lot that brings up too. And ethics has been coming up a lot in these Hakim Isler talks that I've been listening to. And I think it's a really important thing to think about. I remember, I think it was my first year at Contact in the Desert, I asked a question about the ethics of remote viewing, and people were a little bit like caught off guard. They were like, oh, that's, I think, the general response was like, that's a good question. And also, yeah, like, we haven't really thought about it that much. Now, I know a lot of people have, but what happens is, as soon as you go down the path of trying to tap into your psychic abilities, it's highly likely that you're going to have your own questions and thoughts around this idea of ethics, because it's going to become real in your mind. You're going to notice that, like, oh my gosh, if I can just tap into the information of reality and get the answer to any question that I ask, that means technically I can invade other people's privacy. Or if I can travel out of body and walk down the street, what's to stop me from walking through somebody's walls and just looking at what they've got going on, So I assume that this is happening all the time spontaneously, because a lot of the stories that people tell are of the experiences that they can't control. And that's usually how it starts for people. So if you are having a kind of consciousness awakening of any kind, you might start to notice more synchronicities. You might feel big rushes of energy going through you. You might have more precognitive dreams. You might just know things before they're going to happen, or you might just have information about something that came to you seemingly out of nowhere, just into your consciousness. You might have really good luck. You might have the ability to sense the meaning behind other people's words, like you can see through the mask. All of these things are like little beginning points, and then it just builds and builds and builds from there. And so I've been going through this for like 15 or more years. Like, in terms of how people talk about like an awakening, there was a point in my life when it really got really intense and crazy and a lot was happening all at once, and then it never stopped, but it changed. The nature of it changed, and I still am learning and I'm still having experiences, but I can handle it better. And I'm going to tell you about a couple of them, and I think I've told some of these stories before, so forgive me if you've heard it before, but for example, I was dating someone at one point, and I had a dream where I saw him hooking up with somebody else, and it was like in a very specific location, and I was kind of hovering in the ceiling, like in the corner of the room, and I like looked down and I could see them. I did not ask for this, did not try to make it happen, didn't even want this to happen, but it happened. So what can you do? What are the ethics when it comes to just spontaneously going out of body or having a psychic dream? There's not a lot you can do. So that's one type of scenario, but that happened. The next day I confronted him about it, and sure enough, it was real. Another example, and this just came back to me recently because I was watching this interview with Pam Coronado, and she's a psychic who works with police, and her experience was that she would get sort of shot off into these dreams where she would be like in the victim's body, in the backseat of the car, looking out the window, seeing the people in the front, having this whole experience through somebody else's eyes. And it reminded me that, oh my God, that happened to me once. And it was a scenario where somebody I knew was leaning towards me, coming in for a kiss, but it was like a really unexpected person that, like, you know, we had no business being in that scenario. And the next day that person called me and said, like, oh, I kissed this other person for the first time, you know, after all these years. And I thought, oh my God, I knew that, but I didn't tell them, but I was like, I was the other person. Like, I experienced it through the other person. And it was just a flash. I was only there before the kiss, not during, but it was like, that's how it came to my consciousness, which is just so random and so weird. And there are many other examples of things like that that I've gone through, including auditory messages and visual messages in my mind's eye that were like a clear, crystal clear picture. And then that thing happened a couple hours later. But typically for me, first of all, I don't have control over any of those things. But what I do have some control over is my inner knowing, is like being quiet enough to kind of understand when my own inner knowing is telling me something. And that's pretty consistent. That's like all day, every day. Inner guidance is turned on, inner GPS, and I'm in a little conversation with the universe through myself. Like, myself is the interface, but it feels like I'm connecting with something larger than me. So Pam Coronado, in this interview that I was watching, talks about how she didn't have control over these things early on, but she gained control throughout her life. And now she teaches other people. And she basically learned to stop having those spontaneous dreams and start just accessing things at will. And so she could be more effective that way. She can look at a picture and tell if that person is alive or not. And she has a very high success rate with that, like over 90%. I think she might have even said 99%. I don't remember off the top of my head, but a high success rate with that. And other people that I've heard talk about these things, like Hakim Isler, has also been talking about how through his martial arts practice and through his self-discipline and through play and through competition, like friendly, fun competition, and you know, through all of these different means and methods, he's cultivating the abilities. And how even he has learned that there's all these different psi abilities, like seeing without eyes versus remote viewing, but like none of them are the rule for everyone, because even when you're in one exercise, you can still get the data another way. For example, he's doing the mind sight thing with the blindfold that we talked about on my Seeing Without Eyes episode, and he's just sensing that it's orange. He's not seeing the color orange. The card that someone else is holding up is orange, and he's just knowing that, and he's able to say it. So big reminder here to all of us that psychic abilities are vast. We all have different ways of accessing data. They're all right. None of them are wrong, you know, and it's fun to just tune in and see like what our ways are. And part of the way that we can do that is by learning about other people's stories and things that have happened. And sometimes that jogs our memory. And just like writing down dreams helps you to remember your dreams more, I think us talking about these things together and writing them down and sharing about them helps us to experience more of that, if that's something that you're interested in. So those are kind of just some of my rambling thoughts right now, but I am feeling very inspired. I'm going to finish this book. Every day I'm practicing my energetic hygiene. I'm reinvigorated around this idea of ethics, and I'm trying really hard to watch my energy and my thoughts, because it's all too easy for those to just wander in the wrong direction, and I'm just being hyper aware. It's almost like I've created a simulation for myself where I imagine that anyone and everyone can access the database of all that I've ever thought and felt and all that I'm currently thinking and feeling and doing, and that information is just part of the nature of reality now. It's part of the fabric of reality. So anyone who has the skill to access the database can technically tap into that. And that kind of makes me want to watch myself a little bit. I also forgive myself for the times I wasn't perfect, so don't spin out if you're starting to think like, oh my God, everybody can hear my thoughts and like, I'm a creep or whatever. Just start dealing with it. You know, if you don't feel comfortable with that, that's a good signal to like check yourself a little bit, because there may come a day. There really may come a day. And there's a good analog to that right now with the ChatGPT stuff. I saw somebody posting a video outraged that like some court order, something to do with the New York Times and OpenAI, where they're asking for all of the data of everyone's conversations that they've ever had. And I don't know the details of it, so I might be getting this wrong, but what it made me think about, just this person's response was like they were freaking out because obviously they had had some conversations with it that they probably didn't want other people to see, because they were making a really big point of being like, even if you have the private version, even if you have the paid version, even if you have this, you know, they can get everything and look at it. It's like, yeah, once it goes out into reality, it's out. The guru that I grew up around used to say, a word is a bird. Once it's out of your mouth, it's flying free. You know what I mean? Once it's done, it's done. Once you have made a choice or taken an action in this reality, it is so. It has become part of the fabric of reality. So it gives us a new sense of responsibility and, you know, hopefully some excitement to like really be conscious with our choices and think thoughts and feel feelings that we feel good about. And that does take some work, but it is worth it. So that's what I'm thinking about today. I will come back with more on all this consciousness stuff soon, because I think I'm going to be learning a lot more as I get through this book. And thanks for being here with me. I'll see you next time on Shocks Talks.